Hello, stampers and crafters. My name is Sarah Chatello McGuire from Sassy Paper Crafts. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and welcome to my Series 101. This video series is going to be several episodes long. We're going to start with Stamping 101, getting started, getting you all the basics on even what is stamping, all the way up to Embossing 101, heat embossing 101, die cutting 101, etc. So please subscribe to my channel to get and hit the little notification bell to get notified when I upload new videos. And I hope that this helps build your confidence and creativity in your Stampin' Up! Experience. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Enjoy! Stampin' Up! Offers a variety of inks. So many, in fact, 53 colored ones. If you are overwhelmed by the amount of inks in the catalog or in the online store, keep watching. I'm going to go through and show you all the different ones we have. Well, most of the different ones we have, what they do and why you need them. And I'm going to show you how to make this card that uses 4 different inks. So if you want to see how to make this card and learn all about inks, please keep watching. So for this video, I'm going to be going through the different inks that Stampin' Up! Offers, what they do, why you would need them, and how to use them. So the first one I want to start with is the one that most everybody uses, and these are the ones that come in all the pretty colors. These are the classic stamp pads. These are water-based inked, and I will show you they're on page 122 of your annual catalog. They come in collections. I can't even fit it all on here. There's the in colors, the brights, the neutrals, the regals, the subtles, and the basics. Now, we don't have classic stamp pads in the basic colors, but the subtles, the regals, neutrals, in colors, brights, all have classic stamping pads. Like I said, these are water-based, so this is just what you would use to stamp an image, a sentiment, anything like that. You can watercolor with these. There's lots you can do with the classic stamp pads. I recommend purchasing them in the bundles that they come in. That's how I bought mine. That's how I like to have it. If you don't want to do that, they also make Stampin' Spots, which are these. You can get these in paper pumpkins, but they also come in some of our kits, and you can purchase them in a bundle. So you can't purchase them individually, but you can get them in a bundle. The next one and I'm going to show you how to use all these, but the next one I want to talk about quickly is the Memento ink pad. This is our Tuxedo Black ink. These are great for using with blends. So this is just a standard black ink, and it's great for coloring with our alcohol-based blends markers. The next one is Versamark. This is a watermark stamp pad, so when you stamp with it, it shows up clear. This is great for heat embossing. StazOn is a jet black ink, and mine's a little dusty, but it smells like almonds. I love it. I hold my holder in with some mini dimensionals, but this is a permanent ink. So this is what you would want to use if you are watercoloring. It won't bleed, anything like this. And this also requires a special cleaner, which I'll get to in a minute. And the last one is the Craft Pad, and this is just a white ink. Opens the same as our classic ink. But it's a little thicker. So I'm going to show you how to use each one of these. So the first ink I'm going to show you is our classic stamp pads. Like I said, these come in a ton of colors. So if you are into colorful images, sentiments, that sort of thing, these are what you want. So to open these, they open like a compact, and then you just slide them in. And I just have a stamp here from the Forever Fern stamp set. This is a cling stamp set, and I just wanted to demonstrate how this works. So what you do is you tap, tap, tap. You don't smush. You don't rock your stamp. Tap very gently. The ink will come onto your stamp like this, and then you stamp straight down, straight up, applying a little bit of pressure. Now to clean your stamps, I use a Stampin' Scrub. We also have this, mine's cut to pieces, but we also have a Simply Chamois, and I use this with the Stamparatus. More on that in a future video, but I cut mine apart, get it wet, and you can just rub it on your stamps. I'm going to show you the Stampin' Scrub though, because this is what I use. So the Stampin' Scrub has, I have a cat hair on it, has a wet and a dry side. I use our Stampin' Mist. Just take the top off. I spray the wet side. You take your stamp, rub it on one side, dry it on the other, and it's ready to go for either another color, or what we're going to do is another ink. So I'm going to put the stamp pad away, and then we're going to go in with Memento. This is our Tuxedo Black ink, and this is good for our Stampin' Blend markers. We also have Stampin' Write markers, which are the same ink that is in here. So I have Stampin' Write markers. I like to use them. You can use them to color different parts of an image before you stamp it. So if I wanted that to be blue, I could color with a marker and then color that green or whatever colors you're wanting to do. For this video though, I'm just going to show you the blend. So let's get our Memento ink. And the same way as the Stampin' Pad, you just tap, tap, tap very lightly. You don't have to push too hard, and you can see that it's completely covered. And this wasn't a good one to use because it's a solid image. I didn't think about that. But we'll just let that dry for a minute, and then I can color around it and show you how it doesn't bleed. While that's drying, let's clean off our stamp. Now I already sprayed it, so it's good to go. And it's ready for the next ink. But we have our Stampin' Blends. Now these are alcohol-based markers. So a lot of times with the water-based, water and alcohol kind of don't mix. They tend to run together. So if I were to color over that, it bleeds a little bit. So with this one, I color over it, no bleeding. And these are blends markers. So this was light polished pink, and here's dark polished pink. They blend together, but like this one, like I said, it's bleeding. The blue is going kind of, see if I can bring it up so you can see. The blue is kind of bleeding where the Memento is staying put. So the Memento ink, it's a good just to have a regular solid black ink. This is an everyday use black ink, and it's really good for the blends. So next, let's go with our Versamark. So Versamark is a clear watermark ink pad. I use this for heat embossing. So what you would do is I take my Emboss Buddy that you can now get in the mini catalog. It comes in this little baggie. The holiday made, the July to December mini catalog. We now have an Emboss Buddy. And you just rub this over your cardstock just to get any static up that may be on your cardstock. We're not actually going to heat emboss today. That is another video, but I'm just going to show you what this does. So it's tacky. You can't really see anything because it's clear. You're not going to be able to see much because it's, oh, you can see that a little bit. But I wanted to also show you a piece of black cardstock that when you use it on colored cardstock, it creates a nice watermark. So if you wanted a very subtle image, you could you could stamp on a colored piece of cardstock. So that is Versamark. And then what you would do if you were heat embossing is pour your embossing powder over it, shake off the excess, and use our heat tool. I'm going to clean my stamp again, and then we're going to go in with the craft white. Now on the craft white, I'm going to use the basic black because it's not going to show up on this at all. So like I said before, this ink is a little bit thicker. It is water-based, but it's thicker than our classic ink. If you can, I don't know if you can tell. We're just going to stamp it on the black. And look at that beautiful image. So if it's thicker though, it does take a minute to dry. So I got some on my finger. That's okay though. You just want to leave that dry a little bit. I didn't clean my stamp off very good and got it on my ink pad. That's also okay. I'll just take some cardstock. Actually, I can do that right for you guys now. I'll take my cardstock and just rub that out. And you also want to do this when you re-ink. So that was something else I wanted to discuss, was re-inkers. All of our colors and our craft white and our Memento have, my Memento's a little gross, but they all have re-inkers. So to re-ink, you just put a couple drops, and like I said, this is thicker, so it kind of comes out like glue. Put a couple drops, let that soak in. I like to take a scrap piece of cardstock. We'll do it with Memento too. Just because that way, this is what it normally looks like on the craft ink. That's a lot thicker. But you just put a couple drops and it just soaks in to the ink pad. And then what I like to do is I just take a scrap of cardstock and just kind of move it around. And then I'm going to take a different piece of cardstock. I got white on me, but that's okay. It's all part of crafting, right? take a different piece of cardstock and just spread that out a little bit as well. So finally, I want to show you our StazOn ink, but I have to clean my stamp off first because we don't want to get white on the StazOn. I'm going to spray my Stampin' Scrub again. And make sure I get it really good. And now we're going to use our StazOn. So StazOn is a permanent ink. This will stain work surfaces. This will stain your hands. So be very careful with StazOn. I don't recommend, if you let your kids, or you have your kids craft with you or grandkids, I don't recommend having them use StazOn unsupervised. It is permanent. It will damage stuff. So this is the same as all the other ink pads. You just lightly tap and then stamp with it. It is a stronger ink though, and sometimes it does take a minute to dry. But I like this one for watercoloring because it doesn't bleed, it doesn't blend. The alcohol though does kind of mix with it a little bit, not too much. I've seen other people have a lot of problems with the blends and the StazOn. I haven't had too much of a problem with it, but the main thing about this is you need a special cleaner. So I have some StazOn cleaner here. And all I do is I take the tip of the bottle and just kind of run it over my stamp, let it sit for a few seconds, not very long. And I actually use my Stampin' Scrub to clean it. I know some people don't like doing this. You could take a Simply Chamois if you want, or a baby wipe maybe. I really don't recommend the baby wipe though because it could damage your stamp and you don't want to do that. But I find it comes just as clean with the Stampin' Scrub. Now I will go and clean my Stampin' Scrub. I just take a little bit of dish soap and water and let it air dry. So now that I've shown you the different kind of inks, I want to show you a simple stamping card. So let's get to some stamping. So for this card, we're just going to be doing some simple stamping. I'm using 4 different stamps from that Forever Fern stamp set and 4 different inks just so I can show you different ways to maybe create your card. So I have some cardstock here. We're just going to be using basic white and basic black. All the measurements will be in the blog post, so don't worry about that. First, I'm going to start with this piece of basic white. So I'm going to move everything else out of the way. And on this one, we're going to go in with the Memento ink pad. So I'm just going to set that here, and I'm going to use this big fern stamp. And we're just going to ink or stamp all over. I'm turning this as I go. I'm kind of creating my own pattern paper here. And I just inked up this, or re-inked my Memento as you saw. So this is a really juicy. I don't need to push too hard. I'm not doing a whole lot. We have missed a little spot there, but you know what? It's okay. It's a handmade card. I missed a big spot there. Let's try to fix that. Handmade cards always have oopsies, and that's okay. I'm just trying to fill in any gaps. Maybe just put the stem here. That looks good. So I'm not going to use the Memento anymore because I want to show you the other inks. But on our smaller basic black is what we're going to use next. And I'm going to go in with the Craft White ink. And I'm going to use this little fern here to do the same thing that I just did on the basic white, but on this one in white ink. Now that that's all finished, we are going to stamp in StazOn with this ink, or this ink, this stamp and this ink on our other basic white. And there really isn't much of a difference I found with the Memento and the StazOn when it comes to how it looks. I mean, obviously it's going to be, this one's going to be other than the definition of it just because I re-inked my Memento, but I think it still gives a pretty and crisp image. And now for the Versamark one, I could just do a watermark and stamp on the black, but we're going to do a little teeny tiny bit of heat embossing. So I'm going to take my sentiment and ink that up in the Versamark. Stamp it, and you're not going to really be able to see it at all, but we're going to do a little quick bit of heat embossing. So now we're going to do a little bit of heat embossing. I just have a piece of printer paper that I folded in half here. I have some gold emboss powder that doesn't look like this anymore because I bought this so long ago. Our emboss powders come in the basic colors, which is clear, white, and black, and then the metallics, which is gold, silver, and copper. So I'm using gold. I'm just going to sprinkle this over that sentiment that we embossed. And the reason I use the printer paper is because it catches all the stuff. I'm just flicking that off a little bit. I got some on my fingers. Flicking that off, and now you can see the Versamark. So all that emboss powder is sticking to the Versamark. Now to set that, we need our heat tool. It will not set without the heat tool. No matter how long you leave it, it will stay a powder, and when you touch it, the powder will go away. So I have here my tweezers that are in the new mini catalog, the July to December mini. I'm trying to grab my heat tool without knocking everything over. But these are in the July to December mini, and these are in the embossing little kit. And they're great for picking up little pieces like this so you don't burn your fingers. So I'm going to turn my heat tool to the number 2 setting, and we're going to set this, and hopefully you can see the magic. Did you see that magic? It went, oops, it went from a powder to gold right before your very eyes. How cool is that? So now we're just going to put our card together, and that is it. So if you have any questions about the inks or want to know what should I use for this, or feel free to reach out to me. I would be happy to answer your questions. So I'm just using Stamping Seal, putting that on our little black piece here. And like I said, all the measurements for this card will be on my blog. So I'm going to put our basic black piece down first. If I can get my seal to work. There we go. Sometimes you gotta run it a little to get it to work. So I'm going to stick this to the basic white that we stamped kind of askew. A little bit like that. I've been liking how this looks lately. And then I'm going to take this one with some seal and do the same thing slightly askew. And it looks like we might have gotten a little bit of ink, probably from my fingers, onto our card. That is okay. I will show you what I'm going to do to fix that. And I'm going to take some mini dimensionals just because that's what I grabbed. Regular Stampin' Dimensionals would work just fine. And I'm just going to prop up our sentiment and cover the little stems there and make sure that's kind of straight though. There we go. And then we can put this on our card base. And don't forget, when you are using a dark card base like basic black, you want to put a piece of cardstock, usually basic white, on the inside. So I have one of those here, if I can grab it, making sure I have one, just so you can write a message. If you had like a white gel pen or something, you don't have to put one of these on the inside. I just always do because I just write with regular ink pads. I don't get too fancy. And then I have very few. These come in a whole sheet, but I only have a couple left of the Rhinestone Basic Jewels. I'm just going to grab my paper piercer, and that little spot of ink we have, I'm going to cover it with a jewel. Because you have to have, I mean, you don't have to, but I have to have a little bit of bling on all my cards. And this is our simple stamping with a little embossing, different inks card. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out to me. I do these 101 videos every Thursday, so be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that little notification bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.